In the pre-dawn hours of January 29, 2022, a chilling discovery shattered the tranquility of Canton, Massachusetts. Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found lifeless in the snow outside the home of fellow officer Brian Albert. His girlfriend Karen Reed was swiftly thrust into the eye of the storm, accused of second-degree murder. Prosecutors say she struck O'Keefe with her SUV and abandoned him in the elements on purpose. As the legal battle unfolded, Reed's defense wove a narrative of conspiracy and betrayal. They say O'Keefe was killed not by the wheels of Karen Reed's vehicle, but within the walls of Brian Albert's home, a victim of a brutal assault. The defense painted a portrait of a cover-up, implicating members of law enforcement in a sinister plot to shield the true killers and pin the crime on Karen Reed. The first trial ended with a hung jury. Now, as the retrial looms on April 1st, the stakes have escalated. The prosecution is seeking to silence the defense's third-party culpability strategy, preventing the finger from pointing elsewhere. And today, everyone was back in court arguing about whether or not Karen Reed can tell the jury someone else did it. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard, and the countdown continues. We are less than a week away at this point from the beginning of the Karen Reed retrial, the retrial of the century. There's never been a retrial with this much buildup, this much hype, this much anticipation that this one has. And there are people now, I go out, and there are people coming up to me asking me about that woman in Massachusetts. First time around, they weren't. Those who knew, knew. But now it's crossed over. Everyone knows about this story, knows about this case. Now, here's the tragedy of the whole thing. John O'Keefe was killed by someone he knows. Regardless of whose version of that night you believe, whether it's the prosecution, the Commonwealth, or the defense, Karen Reed, John O'Keefe was killed by someone he knew. Think about that for a second. I mean, this is a stand-up guy. This is the guy who stepped in when his sister passed away and his brother-in-law passed away within months of one another, and the children were left orphaned. Single guy who's working as a Boston police officer steps in and says, no, I'll take care of the kids. That's all I need to know about his character. To me, that speaks volumes about who John O'Keefe was. And someone who knew him. And I would guess someone that he trusted took his life. Now, prosecutors are saying it was his girlfriend, Karen Reed. They're saying that, you know, I guess there's problems in the relationship, there's jealousy, there's things going on, whatever. But they believe that something happened that night, and she is the one who did it on purpose, not an accident. That's their backup. That's their plan B. And that's what the jury was, you know, deliberating on last time, because they got rid of the murder and leaving the scene of the accident, counts 1 and 3. They were just deliberating on count 2, whether it was count 2 or a lesser included of count 2. That's what that discussion was about. And they were hung on it. But the bottom line is prosecutors saying she did it on purpose. That is their theory, their story. That's what they believe they are going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Meanwhile, the defense is saying it was someone in the house. And we know who was in the house. You know, there's police officers, there's friends, there are friends of friends that are in that house. And again, that would be someone that John O'Keefe trusted. In both cases, his girlfriend of 2 years, who, you know, is helping with the kids, like he's entrusting her to, you know, watch the kids sometimes, help out with the kids, and someone that obviously he shared a lot with during 2 years. Then someone in the house, someone he trusted, friends, fellow officers, friends of friends. No matter how you look at this is horrible, whoever did this, if they did it on purpose. Now, one of the things that the defense has been, that came up in the last trial that really played out, and we've seen this scenario how many times on court TV, a love triangle, right? And this is, I think, part of where the defense is going in their case, You've got John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. They're united for a couple of years, but we know that Brian Higgins, John's friend, who he trusted, was texting back and forth with Karen. Karen kissed him. And this is, you know, in close proximity to when John O'Keefe died. So could this be some sort of a love triangle? Well, today in the courtroom, they were talking about the defense and their ability to whether or not they'll be able to argue that some third party is responsible for all of this, like someone in the house. And Brian Higgins, obviously, his name came up. And I want to focus tonight, like they did in the courtroom, on motive and opportunity. So here's the defense and the prosecution talking about the potential or lack thereof of a motive for Brian Higgins.
This was the night that after having carried on a flirtation with Ms. Reed while she was dating Mr. O'Keefe, Brian Higgins was confronted with Ms. Reed and Mr. O'Keefe together. In the words of one eyewitness, Ms. Reed and Mr. O'Keefe appeared to be lovey-dovey that night. Higgins had expressed his interest, but it went nowhere. And it went nowhere because prior to January 28th of 2022, Ms. Reed had rebuffed him, essentially ghosted him. She stopped returning his messages. Brian Higgins was liquored up that night as well. They're both very large men. The court saw them on the video. Friends who drank the entire day and night, and they were waiting in the house for Mr. O'Keefe to arrive. Mr. O'Keefe ended up dead because he went to Brian Albert's house.
Finally, the defense turns to Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins was at the Albert address that night. John O'Keefe never went into the Albert address that night. They take very, very select pieces of information, and I would suggest don't tell the whole story. And from that, they want us to speculate a motive. For example, they say that Karen Reed had kissed Mr. Higgins at John's house. That seems to be corroborated in the text messages. According to the text messages, Mr. Higgins essentially says that Miss Reed came up to him and planted a kiss on him. And there's quite a bit of text message exchange that you heard during trial about that interaction. And then at some point, Miss Reed went to Mr. Higgins' house. And so there was some interest, it would appear, from the text messages between the two. Mutual, at best. There's a plethora of text messages where Miss Reed is pursuing Mr. Higgins, looking for his time, looking for his intention. In one, she says, I was basically begging him to come over. Do you like me? Come over to my house. There are text messages talking about Mr. Higgins not having enough time for her. So there is a flirtatious relationship between the two of them. What we don't see is that somehow that creates a motive for Mr. Higgins to want to hurt or kill John O'Keefe. Brian Higgins sent a text message saying to John O'Keefe, asking if he was coming to the home that night, and they then attached the word he lured them to the house. I mean, we do look at this evidence not in a vacuum, but logically and realistically. Not knowing that Karen Reed was not going to come in when they arrived at the house, is it reasonable, is it rational, is it lucid to think that that Mr. Higgins was inviting them both over to the house, not knowing only one of them would get out of the car? Is the suggestion that Mr. Higgins was going to kill both of them? Or he was going to kill one of them, so the other one he would then set up for murder so that he wouldn't be able to see her anyways? The absurdity of the relationship between the claim and reality is so great that it will just run rampant through this trial.
So is there motive for Brian Higgins in this case? Does it make sense? Joining me from Massachusetts, we've got about 50% of our Karen Reed trial insiders tonight. Must be a Red Sox or a Celtics game or something going on. Criminal defense attorney Joseph Krasky Jr. is with us, and the author of the book, Storm of Suspicion, the Karen Reed Trials, Kevin Lenahan, is with us. Thank you to you both. Let's talk about motive here. What are your thoughts, Joseph? I mean, I've been here at Court TV for many, many years, and I've covered more than my share of love triangle cases. Do you think this fits the mold here of a love triangle, Higgins, O'Keefe, and Reed?
Well, certainly it's fairly legion in these types of cases that a motivating factor, right, would be love. In this case, though, it really is a reach, isn't it? If you listen to the texts in the first trial, Brian Higgins exercised what seems to be a lot of restraint and certainly exhibited respect for Karen Reed in the text that went back and forth between the two of them. Where it becomes a reach is what would be the motive to lure John O'Keefe over to the house at Fairview to kill him so he could have Karen Reed to herself, only to then accuse her or conspire to have her accused of his murder? It doesn't really make sense. But look, admissibility at trial versus plausibility are two separate and distinct issues. Also, if you look at the forensic evidence, there is no evidence putting John O'Keefe, either forensically or by eyewitness testimony, in that house. So to the extent Brian Higgins did anything, it would have had to be out in that front lawn. Plausible, no. A reach, yes. But will Judge Cannone allow it in? Perhaps. She is a very defense-friendly judge. She believes in robust defenses, despite what many of her critics following this case believe. Defense lawyers all know that she is very defense-friendly and wants defendants to have as robust a defense as they can.
Let's take a listen to Brian Higgins here, talking about what happened at John's house, John O'Keefe's house, and they were watching the Patriots game. John is there, Brian is there, and Karen is there.
So as I was exiting the house, it was either through the breezeway or the garage, and as we were walking out, the defendant planted a kiss on me.
After that incident, it's safe to say, we've just gone through a number of them, you exchanged flirtatious texts with Miss Reed, is that right?
Is the incident you're referring to when she kissed me?
No, I'm saying after that. After that incident, yes, after the Patriots game.
Okay, yep.
You exchanged flirtatious texts.
We did.
With Miss Reed.
I did.
And that was over the course of a few weeks, couple of weeks, but just 9 days. Is that right?
So it was between the January 12th and I would say before the 28th, because the 28th she didn't respond, and the 29th she sent that last text that John died.
When John walked in to the waterfall, were you already there?
Yes.
He greeted you, you indicated, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Karen walked in with him.
Yes.
But she did not greet you, did she?
I think they kind of went like that in different directions.
Right.
Yes.
Did she greet you?
No.
Right. So she walked over toward the corner of the bar, and John came over and greeted you, and then walked over and joined her, correct?
Yes.
Karen didn't stop what she was doing once she was over in the corner of the bar and come over and say hi to you?
I didn't have any interaction with her that night, no.
So safe to say that throughout that evening, once she was sidled up next to John O'Keefe or friends that she was with, she never turned back around and came over and even acknowledged you, correct?
That's correct.
So she basically ignored you the entire evening.
That's not how I interpret it, no. I don't know.
Did that upset you that she ignored you or didn't pay attention to you?
I did not feel ignored and didn't upset me at all.
But it bothered you enough to send her a text, didn't it?
No, it was a flirtatious text. It was just, that was it.
It bothered you enough to send her a text that said, with 6 M's behind it.
Okay.
And, well, correct?
Well, it wasn't like that. It was, well, that's it.
Just, well, like a well in the ground.
I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you do too, sir. You meant, well, when are you gonna pay attention to me?
No, that's not correct.
When you texted her, well, at Waterfall, she ignored that text too, correct?
Well, that was the only text I sent that night to her, yes.
Well, Kevin, what does that mean?
You know, it's hard to know what it means. I think Hank Brennan did a really good job today in pointing out that if the defense's theory is not that Brian Higgins actually just ran into John and had a fight with him at 34 Fairview. Their theory is that he planned this, that he lured him there. And does that really make sense? Because if you're going to lure John there, how could he have known that Karen wasn't going to go into the house? If the idea is that John went into the house, wouldn't they believe that Karen was going to go into the house? So was the plan to attack John in front of Karen? Was the plan to attack them both? So there's a lot of crazy things here. And, you know, since I'm here with two excellent lawyers, I'd like to maybe turn this back to you guys if I could. I know I don't usually do that. So when I was in high school, I was a big fan of Alan Dershowitz, and I used to read his books. And I'm still a fan of Alan Dershowitz, you know, and it really impressed on me the importance of having a defense attorney, a vigorous defense attorney. And he represented some reprehensible clients, and he did his best to get these guys off. And it really left an impression on me. But what I'm watching here, what this defense team is doing here and in court today and is really putting out half-truths that add up to deceptions, like trying to suggest that Brian Higgins went out of his way to go to a military base to destroy and data and his SIM cards and stuff like that, when they know, when it came out in trial, that all he did was, he lives on Cape Cod where there's no community trash pickup in those towns. He stops on the base as a shortcut on the way to get off the Cape, which is basically like an island. And he just threw out his garbage there because it's he just dumped a bag of garbage in the dumpster. But just over and over again to try to turn everything into something that is pointing innocent evidence against innocent people and trying to turn it into something suspicious. I don't know. I would not be able to be a defense lawyer. I don't think I could I couldn't use these tactics, but I don't know what you guys think.
Oh, I think something, and that's a great point that you're making there, Kevin. But Joseph, I would respond to that saying I've seen that done from both sides. I've seen defense attorneys complain about prosecutors who take things and take them out of context or blow them up and make them look nefarious when they may or may not be. So I think it's part of what happens in a trial. Everything is bigger inside of a courtroom.
Sure. You know, they have an ethical duty to Karen Reed, and I have no problem them capitalizing on facts that they believe are helpful to their case. So what I just would prefer that they keep it within the four walls of that courtroom. What I haven't really been comfortable with is embracing the media campaign employed in this case, where some of these third-party culprits have been just absolutely victimized and targets of harassment. But the Higgins, I'll part with Kevin a little bit. I don't really mind them capitalizing on those facts, taking things that they think they can weave into their defense strategy. And again, it is incumbent upon the Commonwealth to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Look, there's a line, and defense attorneys walk right up against that line as long as they don't cross it. I'd use my own mother as a third-party culprit if I could do it in good faith. So that part of it doesn't bother me. They do run the risk, though, right? They run the risk if they stretch it too thin. That juror that you had on, Vinny, I think one of the things he acknowledged was they rejected the third-party culprit defense. And he said that during at least one of the interviews, and perhaps because they did not have it focused and they cast too wide a net in that regard, they lost credibility with that jury regarding that defense.
Yeah, but he was still a not guilty juror for the defense. He told me he voted not guilty.
Well, yeah, but he also he's if you've watched him, he's been on a media tour, and his statements are certainly fluid. They do evolve.
Yep. Okay. Here's the good news, Joseph and Kevin, staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about two other people that the defense is pointing the finger at, the Alberts, Brian and Colin Albert, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, Corey Richins was working at Home Depot when she met Eric Richins, a successful businessman in Utah. They fell in love, got married, and started a family with 3 little boys. But now, Eric is dead, and Corey is charged with murder. And the alleged murder weapon? A Moscow mule laced with poison.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
It didn't matter where I turned. Everyone was talking about the O.J. Simpson verdict.
You could hear the gasp.
My jaw dropped. Relive the verdict. Trial and error. Why did O.J. win? Season finale Sunday night, only on Court TV.
After Brian Higgins left, Brian Albert maintained contact with him. At 2:22 in the morning, the two of them were exchanging phone calls to check in with each other just a couple of hours after Mr. O'Keefe was mortally attacked. Mr. O'Keefe had dog bites and/or scratches on his arm consistent with a dog or an animal attack.
That there are calls between Mr. Albert and Mr. Higgins later that night. So what? They have no evidence that either of them spoke to each other. They have no evidence of conversations. They have no evidence of a conspiracy. They have no evidence of a cover-up. They have no evidence of a weapon. What we know is John O'Keefe never went in the home.
So, third parties. Did someone else kill John O'Keefe? Can the defense make that argument? What evidence is there? That's what we're looking at right now. And here I want to focus in on the Alberts, right? The ones who own the home. And I'm talking about Brian, but also his son, Colin. But let's begin with Brian Albert, because one of the unusual circumstances that came up during that first trial that we learned about were the butt dials between Brian Higgins, who we just talked about, and Brian Albert. Take a listen.
Sir, did you make any phone calls after you went to bed between the hours of 1:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Who did you call?
I inadvertently called Brian Higgins.
What time?
I don't recall the exact time. After 2.
2:22 and 35 seconds. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Did you speak to Brian Higgins at any point between 1:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. that night?
No.
You say you inadvertently called him at 2:22 in the morning.
Yes.
How did you inadvertently call him?
Well, I don't know because it was inadvertent.
So I have to explain that.
Well, it's kind of like a butt dial.
So according to your phone records, you placed a call to him, and then 17 seconds later, he returned a call to you that lasted 22 seconds. Correct?
That's what the records reflect, yes.
When you woke up in the morning, you obviously checked your phone. Did you not?
I don't know if I did.
Are you telling this jury that the call that came into your phone was a missed call, or did you answer it?
I did not answer it.
So it would have been a missed call.
I just know I didn't answer the call.
So it would have been a missed call.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that to be a fact. I just know I didn't answer the phone call.
Okay.
I missed the call, yes.
So Brian Albert owns the home. He's a Boston police officer like John O'Keefe, but I don't know how much he knew about John O'Keefe. It seemed like Brian Higgins knew John O'Keefe much better than Brian Albert did. Did Brian Albert have a motive here? Still with us from Massachusetts, our Karen Reed insiders, Joseph Krowski Jr. and Kevin Lenahan. And also joining us, former Deputy Public Defender, L.A. County, Philip Dubé is with us. Great to see you, Philip. All right, do you see, Philip, in any of this, do you see any sort of motive that Brian Albert would have to kill John O'Keefe?
Zero. I mean, if we're really honest, what is so fabulous about Karen Reed? If she doesn't want him, then he can have her. You know, that's probably the attitude. I think it is rank speculation.
No, Brian Albert, not Brian Higgins, who she kissed.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Brian Albert, Brian Albert, the one who owns the home on which he was found on the front lawn, who was doing the butt dials.
No, not at all. Otherwise, why would he have invited him over? Why would they even have him over? Why? So they can have this spectacle of him being murdered, almost like a gladiator type fight. Everybody gets to take their whacks for what? Over some type of beef that they had years prior regarding somebody cutting across somebody's lawn. It is desperate and it's absurd, and I predict that the judge will never allow this third-party culprit evidence in unless they can prove something more than means, motive, and opportunity. Because the crux, Vinny, and maybe Joseph can chime in on this, and Al.
You don't have to prod Joseph Krowski Jr. to chime in on anything.
No, remember, the whole idea is to raise doubt as to who the true culprit is. And when you just are raising the opportunity and maybe even a motive, as opposed to something that directly links them to the homicide, then you're asking a jury to acquit based on an unreasonable doubt, or what we sometimes call in the law just a mere shadow of a doubt. There has to be something more, in my opinion anyway. And if you don't have it, then under the case law, you just can't allow it in, because what it does is it truly distorts the definition of reasonable doubt into an unreasonable doubt.
Well, let's talk about the dog, Chloe. Here's Nichole Albert talking about Chloe.
Ms. Albert, you don't have Chloe anymore, do you?
Nope.
In May of 2022, 4 months after Mr. O'Keefe's death, you got rid of your family dog of 6 years.
Objection.
So is that true? Is that when you got rid of your dog? I did not get rid of my dog. I rehomed my dog.
Your dog is no longer in the Canton area, correct?
No, but I know where she is. She's in Vermont.
Okay, and the reason, Joseph, that Chloe is such a big part of the talk about this case and could be part of the trial is we've got dog bite experts coming in from both sides. We've got the photo of John O'Keefe's arm, which everyone has an opinion on. What are your thoughts about the dog and Brian Albert? It's his dog in his home. It's the dog that didn't alert when there were people in the front yard. It's the dog that was gone.
Well, we know, despite rumors to the contrary, Chloe is very much alive. The Commonwealth had an expert go out and take dental impressions of Chloe that they're going to seek to admit at trial to dispel the notion that those are actually dog bites. It sounds like from the presentation of the Commonwealth, they are also going to line up those injuries with the vehicle impact, the collision, something they weren't able to do at the first trial. And I have touted many times that advantage typically goes to the Commonwealth in a retrial because they're able to take any deficiencies and weaknesses and correct them and fix them. And the shock and awe benefit to the defendant at the first trial is somewhat blunted. Look, Chloe's only relevant if two things can happen. Dr. Russell can convince a jury that those are actually dog wounds, and the defense can actually articulate a plausible scenario how it is that Chloe would somehow be involved and interact with John O'Keefe. You would have to have John O'Keefe in that house. And all the forensic data that I have seen to this point keeps John O'Keefe outside in the front yard in the area of that flagpole. One final note, I was just kidding about my mother. I would not actually use her as a third party.
We were going to bring her in next segment. We were going to bring her in next segment. By the way, for folks watching at home, you may notice on the bottom right part of your screen, the jury clock on the verdict watch for North Dakota versus Nichole Rice has stopped. That means one of two things, right? We have a verdict or the jury's going home. And I'm hearing the jury has gone home for the night. So make sure you tune in first thing tomorrow morning to Julie Grant as our verdict watch continues in that case. In the meantime, let's take a listen to David Yannetti here talking about Colin Albert.
And finally, Colin Albert is a potential suspect. He had been in a feud with John O'Keefe. He'd thrown beer cans in his bushes, told him to F off. We have a good faith basis to claim that. This is the same Colin Albert who testified under oath he had never been in a fight in his life. Yet there are videos of him clearly desperate to beat up others. The same Colin Albert who had scraped up knuckles just a few weeks after John O'Keefe's death.
Okay, let's take a look at those pictures first, because I know they're going to come up in the conversation. We begin with Colin at Fenway Johnny's, February 26th. Clearly, there's something going on with the knuckles there. They are scraped. Here's Colin Albert explaining those injuries?
How'd you get those injuries, Mr. Albert? We can analyze that.
I was at a party, my house party, my senior year, and I remember it being icy out, and it was kind of like a steep hill of a driveway, and I was walking up the driveway, and I slipped down the driveway, and I tried to catch myself, but I had something in my left hand, so I had tried to brace myself with my right hand, and I ended up sliding a little bit down the driveway.
What'd you have in your left hand?
If I remember, it was either my phone or a beverage.
And here are the other photos that are relevant to all of this. And you can see the right hand, although you don't see the top of the knuckles. And there's another picture. February 11th photos there. What do they prove? What do they show? What does this all mean? Kevin Lenahan, Colin Albert, your thoughts?
Well, the medical examiner said that there was no evidence that John was in a fight. The emergency room doctors said the same thing. The defense tried to ask the medical examiner. The only thing on John's face was 2 small scratches. There were no split lips, no broken nose, no abrasions on the eyes. There were just 2 tiny wounds. And so the defense, using their kind of tricks, will say, well, could that have been caused by a fight? Well, of course, the doctor said, yes, it could have been, but it also could have been caused by being sucked up into a tornado. But had he been sucked up into a tornado, he'd have a lot more extensive injuries, right? Well, the same thing had he been in a fight. We've all seen people in fights in an industry I used to work in. I've seen a lot of damage from that. And your hand will look, both your hands will look scuffed up, your face. John O'Keefe was not in a fight. Now, if they want to try to claim that maybe he was ambushed as he walked through the door and whacked on the back of the head, that'll be different. But the GPS shows, and this is one thing too, I just want to finish with this. People don't really notice that the GPS showed that John didn't go in the house, and the defense did not dispute it. They tried to dispute about the time a little bit, about the timing of the GPS, which was really a desperate reach. But as they were doing that, they did not dispute the accuracy of the location data. And the location data showed that John, or at least his phone, never went inside the house.
Okay, we've got more to get to. We've been talking about the third parties. Well, the one who's on trial is Karen Reed. Well, is there motive and opportunity for Karen Reed to have committed this murder?
Now, as far as this first voicemail, what time did this occur?
12:37 a.m.
And with the court's permission, if I could play that for the jury.
Yes.
Third message, what time is that received?
12:59.
John, I'm telling you, kid. Nobody knows what the you want.
With regard to the fifth message, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:11 a.m.
Yes, 1 in the morning. I'm with your niece and nephew. You pervert. You're a pervert.
And the sixth message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:18 a.m.
John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You're using me right now. I have a girl. He's sleeping next to me. You're a loser.
The seventh message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
5:23 a.m.
These are all the phone calls and messages that prosecutors say Karen Reed left after she murdered John O'Keefe. Do they demonstrate the motive in this case for Karen Reed? We've been talking about all these other folks that the defense is going to try to point the finger at during the trial, but we know the trial is about Karen Reed and whether or not prosecutors can prove that she did it beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, is that evidence of motive that we heard in those voicemails that prosecutors say she left after the murder? How about this testimony from Jennifer McCabe?
As we got by different landmarks, she then started, screaming, asking if John could be at certain people's houses.
And whose houses was she asking if John could be at?
If she could be at Bella's house.
There have been some years in the past dating relationship between Mr. O'Keefe and Bella's mother, correct?
Yes.
What is that? How do we interpret this stuff with Karen Reed? This jealousy that she seems to have, this belief that John is sleeping with some other woman in the neighborhood. Is that really evidence of motive in this case, Joseph?
Well, what I think the problem for the Reed defense is its demeanor evidence, right? She's charged under the Massachusetts statute with second-degree murder. The Commonwealth need not prove that she had the intent to kill. All they have to prove is she had the intent to do an act which created a plain and strong likelihood that death might result. So that's fairly contemporaneous to the time that John O'Keefe was killed at that residence, and it shows what her demeanor is. It also shows issues with impulsivity and lack of impulse control. But finally, it's not good optics. You never want to put that type of demeanor in front of a jury. You know, you want to create as much sympathy and engender as much goodwill towards your client as you can. And that's, I think, the most damaging part of those voicemail messages, that she was seemingly easily triggered by the mere fact of passing houses of individuals that might have had prior relationships with John O'Keefe.
Yeah, but they're all after the murder. Like, and they're saying she did it on purpose, right? They're not saying this is an accident. They're not saying it's an accident. They're saying she did it on purpose. So
they're not.
Go ahead.
They're not necessarily saying or required to prove that she killed him on purpose. And I get it.
Whatever she did, she took a 3,000, 4,000 pound SUV and rammed it into him, going however fast. Let's take a listen to Trooper Joe Paul. Will tell us exactly what they believe she did.
So the vehicle was traveling in reverse.
And how fast was the vehicle traveling and over what distance?
The vehicle traveled up to 24 miles per hour and approximately 62 feet.
What, if anything, occurred then?
The right rear of the Lexus struck the pedestrian John O'Keefe.
And post-collision, what, if anything, occurred with regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
Mr. O'Keefe was projected forward and to the left along the front yard of 34 Fairview Road.
They're not saying this is an accident. You know, they're not. This is a murder case. As I look at it, Philip, it's a murder case. She's saying all these things afterwards, like demeaning him and then saying he could be there, he could be there. John, where are you? Sleeping with this one, you sleeping with that one. Doesn't sound to me like someone who knows they just committed a murder.
No, of course not. Not at all. I don't think that that was her intent at the time that she sped that car up 62 feet and then put her in reverse and went back. I think there was some type of argument that happened in the car before he got out. Maybe they were talking about parting ways, splitting. He was going to go in without her, and she just sort of lost it. But not with the intent to kill, but just maybe to have the last word and just give him a good, in Yiddish, we say a good zetz with the car. But under Massachusetts law,
does that mean does that mean she intended to hit him with the car but not kill him?
Correct. That's correct. In other words, she committed an act.
So she's going to run him over and then afterwards scream at him on her voicemail, which is basically
correct.
Really, Kevin, are you buying this, Kevin? I'm looking at this like, if she is intentionally doing this to him, why is she now leaving a message like that? Is it like, oh, I just meant to bump him? Like, they're saying she intended to ram him. I mean, 24 miles an hour for 62 feet. You got to like pin it to do that.
I think at the end of the day, we don't know. We certainly don't know beyond reasonable doubt what she intended to do when she went in reverse. She does seem to have impulse control issues and anger management issues.
That sounds like not guilty on count one, Kevin.
No way.
No, because there are other aspects of intent in this. I'm not a lawyer, right? But if she knew she struck John but didn't try to help him or didn't call 911 for help, there's intent there, right? So she's charged with second-degree murder, right? So there's malicious intent.
We have no idea beyond a reasonable doubt what her intent was.
We don't know what her intent was when she put it in reverse and backed up. It's possible she was just on.
That sounds like not guilty on count one, Kevin. I got you to not guilty. Look at that.
No,
because there are other aspects of this. If she didn't call 911. Go
All
ahead,
right,
Joe. Yep.
Judge Krowski, go ahead.
Sure. So what you got to understand, and I don't want to get hyper technical, but third prong malice of second degree murder in Massachusetts is almost indistinguishable from manslaughter. They don't even have to prove she intended to hit him. The mere fact that after consuming alcohol in anger, backed up a 6,000-pound motor vehicle 60 feet at 25 miles an hour in the direction of where John O'Keefe was can probably get them where they need to be. Look, it's not an easy sell, but don't mistake it with the specific intent to hit him or kill him.
We are out of time. Great job, guys. As always, Joseph Krowski Jr., Philip Dubé, Kevin Lenahan. We'll see you again really, really soon. When we come back, something else you need to know tonight.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Coming up next, only on Court TV.
The jury was sequestered for 9 months.
These people were too beat down to even try to fight for their own conviction.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? Season finale Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Feature.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board, and the verdict watch continues in the case of Nichole Rice. She's accused of stabbing her roommate to death. 4 hours, 24 minutes they deliberated today. They ordered pizza, but they've gone home for the night. Take a listen to a piece of the closing argument so you understand what they are debating.
There's only one conclusion to be drawn. Most importantly, from the defendant's knowledge and her admissions. Admissions to friends, and what she told her Aunt Brenda, whose heart was breaking about this. There's only one conclusion to be drawn, and that is that in the early morning hours of June 3rd, 2007, Nichole Rice took this knife and plunged it into the chest of this girl and killed her.
Their case doesn't work. Their own lead investigator, Detective Asham, told you guys she didn't review the whole file. That's not bad police work. That's insane to bring charges when you haven't reviewed a file. They're trying to say this is a puzzle with many pieces. No, it's a murder case. And everybody in here deserves justice. Anita and Nichole, and this isn't how you get it.
Make sure you tune in first thing tomorrow morning to Julie Grant, because sometimes a jury reaches a verdict at night and they want to sleep on it, and then they deliver it early in the morning. Okay. Right now, though, I need you to take a look at your television screens because we have a missing child who needs your help. This is Halen Sky Griffin. Halen is missing out of Houston, Texas. She's only 16 years old, missing since March 10th. Here's what you can do. If you see Halen, take a look at her picture. If you see her, make a call, make a difference. Pick up the phone. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Houston Police Department in Texas. That phone number is on our screen right now. Let's see if we can get Halen to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We've got another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.